Okay, so I think pretty much everyone listening has probably felt this, right? That moment, you may be feeling okay, safe enough, could be with your partner, or maybe in therapy, maybe even just by yourself late at night. And the question comes up, how are you, really?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this immediate, it's like a physical thing, almost underground, so fast. Before your brain even catches up, this whole, defensive structure just activates.
Exactly. Yeah, that flipper. It's not really about lying. It's your nervous
Yeah.
system doing the super quick calculation. You might feel a little tightening here in the chest, or maybe the throat gets just tight enough that your voice changes a bit. Your eyes might sort of look away for a second. The reflex isn't just to say, I'm fine. It's almost to become fine, just enough to get through that moment. It's a really deep, old survival thing, designed way back when to protect the parts of us that feel, well, the most raw.
And that's really what we want to dig into today. We're trying to go beyond just, the performance of being vulnerable, like sharing the big story or the tears. We want to look at the internal experience, the actual work of being present. Because that armor, that immediate tightening, it costs something. A lot, actually, over time. It costs us real contact, not just with other people, but maybe even more importantly with our own sense of being alive.
And the goal here for this deep dive is really to understand the shape of that armor, the one we built when we were just trying so hard not to, disappear, be too much. So our mission for you, listening right now, is to start noticing those moments, those places inside, maybe in your body, where you kind of stop your own natural flow, where expression gets cut off. We want to spend time just noticing the actual sensation rather than getting caught up in the usual story we tell ourselves about it. The armor, it's not like a character flaw or something. It's the structure that's maybe keeping us from feeling whole the way we kind of long to.
Let's start right there with the body, because that tightening you mentioned, that reflex, it says so much, doesn't it? Why does just acknowledging something inside vulnerability, why does it feel like such an immediate physical threat? Why does the body instantly go into defense mode?
Well, the body doesn't really operate on future possibilities or thinking about the past. It operates on memory, survival memory. So that tightening, maybe it's your jaw clenching or your shoulders bracing up or your breath getting shallow. That's not just random stress. It's a learned response.
Yeah.
It's fear. It's rooted in actual experience.
Yeah.
Every time showing that rawness, that uncertainty led to something painful, getting rejected, feeling like you're just a burden the body learned, it stored that lesson. That feeling equals danger.
Right. And we often think of danger as, a physical thing, like getting hurt. But here, the danger is really about connection, isn't it? It's that fear of being inconvenient that seems to drive the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely. It's that deep, usually unspoken question kind of humming in the background, right? What if they see me, really see me in all my messiness, my uncertainty, my actual need? What if they see the confusion? What if they figure out I'm not quite who they thought I was? And what if the real, whole, sometimes messy truth of me is just too much for them to handle? That fear being too much, or maybe not enough, that's often way stronger, way more terrifying than worrying about physical harm.
So when that fear gets triggered, the whole idea of vulnerability just shifts. It stops being about openness and starts feeling like a huge liability, like danger.
Exactly. Vulnerability, seen through that old, conditioned lens, feels like standing out in a field during a thunderstorm with absolutely no cover, just exposed, wide open. The system learned, maybe a long time ago, that showing that rawness, that neediness, it's just asking for trouble. It's a liability. Or it makes you a burden, people might reject it. Or worse, maybe they'll use it against you later. Think about times when showing you were confused meant you got left behind, or admitting you were sad meant people thought you were weak. Those kinds of experiences, those are the bricks that built the armor.
Okay, so the way we adapt then, the way we kind of fold ourselves up to fit in, that's actually a really smart human response. We shouldn't judge it too harshly. It's not about being fake.
We really have to honor the armor, seriously. That strategy, keeping your voice kind of careful and safe, putting on a smile when you actually feel like crying, saying, oh, I'm fine, when you're really falling apart inside, that's not being deceitful. It's actually a kind of genius adaptation. It's designed to do two really important things at once: keep us safe and keep us connected, even if the connection feels a bit shallow sometimes. We learn to fold ourselves to fit into whatever space seems available, just to make sure we stay loved, stay wanted, within the limits of what the world or maybe certain people seem willing to accept.
But the catch-22, the paradox, is that folding ourselves like that whole adaptive strategy, means the energy of whatever wasn't expressed, the need, the truth, it has to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And it ends up getting stored in the body.
The tension we carry around, maybe in the back of your neck or across your forehead, or that deep tightness in your diaphragm. That's the physical echo. It's the body's memory holding the imprint of every time the truth got swallowed down or hurt got laughed off just to keep things smooth. That tension is the structure of the armor. It's always kind of vigilant, always braced, ready for the next potential storm, the next perceived threat.
In that moment, the one where we choose control, keeping it together over actually connecting, that hits the core paradox here, doesn't it? We think we're protecting ourselves by staying guarded, by keeping the armor up. But what we're actually losing is contact, real contact. We end up trading that messy, alive, real connection for something that feels safer, more predictable maybe, but isn't really connection at all.
That really is the heart of it. And this is where the Gestalt way of looking at things gives us a really useful, precise way to talk about it. We call this the interruption of contact. And it's usually not some big dramatic thing. It's subtle, almost instant. It's a block in the natural flow of energy, the flow between you and the world, or even you and yourself. We're not trying to find someone to blame or make a big drama out of it. It's more about just noticing where the flow stops. Where's the dam being built?
And figuring out where that interruption happens.
Yeah.
That takes some real internal honesty, right?
Yeah.
You have to get specific about where you stop yourself. Can we maybe walk through those specific questions, the ones we need to ask ourselves to really pinpoint where we interrupt that flow?
Yeah, absolutely, because the interruption can happen in different places. It's helpful to notice, first, where do I stop myself from reaching out? And that's not just physically reaching. It could be intellectually or emotionally. Like you feel the need to ask a question or ask for help or just reach for some kind of connection. And immediately, this wave of I should be self-sufficient or don't bother them just washes over you and stops it cold.
Right. Okay. And the second one, where do I cut off my own voice, like the real voice, the one that might be a bit shaky or uncertain before it even comes out? That's the difference between just saying, oh, I had a busy day, versus saying, I had really a busy day, and honestly, I feel totally overwhelmed and kind of fragile right now.
Yeah. The interruption happens right there, maybe in the throat, the vocal cords, maybe even just holding your breath. And the third one, this one can be particularly tough to face. Where do I numb myself or shut down my feeling to avoid feeling how much I actually want to be held? Or how desperately I might need something or someone. This is the interruption that stops real dependency, real need, from ever even surfacing into awareness. If the need feels too big, too scary, we just shut the feeling down completely. We become fiercely independent, telling ourselves we don't need anything. But often underneath that, the need is huge, just buried really deep.
These interruptions, they build up into what you call the silent script. Let's go back to that story you mentioned, the child crying. It really shows how these adult patterns get started, doesn't it? The kid's crying and the adult says, don't cry, be strong. Or maybe, ugh, I'm busy right now.
Yeah. And in that moment, the child doesn't just stop the tears. They stop feeling safe to cry. They learn really fast that their raw emotion is maybe a burden or an inconvenience, or it makes the adult uncomfortable. The hurt doesn't just vanish. The energy of that hurt, that unmet need, it gets turned inward, stored. The underlying message becomes crystal clear. Hide your need if you want to keep the connection.
And that story, that message, it doesn't just disappear when the kid grows up.
Yeah.
It becomes this quiet, relentless script running underneath our adult relationships, whispering those old survival rules. If you admit you're scared, they'll think you're weak, they won't trust you, or careful if you show them you need them, they'll just use it against you later.
And the result? We stop showing up as our whole selves. Instead of speaking the raw truth, we present this edited version, the easy to be around version. We hide the shaky uncertainty behind a quick joke, or we mask feeling totally drained with just more activity, more doing. The tragedy, the real cost, is that in trying so hard to control how we're seen, just to make sure we're still wanted, we lose the ability to feel truly seen, truly met, truly whole. We swap real contact for conditional acceptance.
So if the interruption, the armor, lives in the body, then the body has to be where we focus. Right? We've talked about the tension, shoulders, jaw, belly. This isn't just stress in the way we usually talk about it, is it? It's more like the physical record of every time we swallowed our truth.
It absolutely is body memory. Yeah, that tension is the armor made physical. Every single time you bit back an angry word, maybe your jaw clenched. Every time you held back tears, your throat probably tightened, your eyes felt dry. The body learns this default defensive posture. It might freeze or numb out or find ways to distract itself, all to minimize the risk of potential rejection or feeling abandoned again.
So we can almost think of this tension, that chronic ache in the neck or the tight knot in the stomach, as like our loyal protector. It's exhausted, totally overworked, but it won't stand down because it still remembers the danger from way back when.
It is exactly that. The loyal, overworked, and deeply, deeply exhausted protector. The problem is, its operating manual was written based on, say, a 10-year-old's world, but it's still running the show in our adult lives. And our usual reaction, what culture teaches us, what our instinct tells us, is to just override that feeling, to think our way out of it. Or worse, to judge it. Why am I so tense? This is stupid. I should just relax.
Right, but you can't just think your way out of a physical defense mechanism. It doesn't work like that. And this is where phenomenology comes in.
Yeah.
It's a powerful tool because it shifts the focus away from why the body is tense and just towards noticing that it is.
Phenomenology. Yeah, in this context, it's really about this radical act of just suspending judgment, suspending the need to explain it. It's about pure descriptive awareness, presence. We're asking you, the listener, to try stopping the question, why do I feel this? And instead, just gently ask, what am I noticing right now in my body?
Okay, so what does that actually look like? How do we know if we're analyzing versus just sensing?
Well, cognitive analysis, the story, sounds something like, okay, I feel this sinking feeling because I'm worried about the mortgage, and that reminds me of how my dad always struggled with money, so I guess that's why I feel sad. See? It's all explanation. Sensation, the phenomenological noticing, sounds more like this. There's a dull, heavy feeling. Feels like it's located about 3 inches below my navel. It feels kind of cold and dense, and I notice my breath is catching high up in my chest. See the difference? It's huge. We're staying with the what of the feeling and the where in the body, not jumping immediately to the why or the story about it.
And the really crucial insight here then is that the practice isn't about analyzing why you feel a certain way. It's about just allowing yourself to feel it right here, right now, without deciding if it's good or bad, right or wrong, appropriate or silly.
Exactly. That sensation, whether it's a tiny tremor in your hand or a sudden flush of heat or maybe a wave of nausea that is the doorway, it's the path back to presence. It's the stored energy from the past, the feeling that got interrupted that's just been waiting for a safe moment to be felt, to move through. The goal isn't to fix it. It's not to make it go away. The goal is simply to let it be felt. It's like quietly saying to that raw energy, okay, I see you. You're allowed to be here. That simple, quiet, non-judgmental acknowledgement. That's the very first step in starting to soften the armor.
Okay, so to really understand where we interrupt ourselves, where we build that dam, we need to understand the natural flow we're interrupting. And let's really break down this cycle of contact or cycle of experience. It's supposed to be this natural unfolding in life, right?
Yeah.
It sounds almost simple.
It is. It's like the fundamental blueprint for how we engage with the world as living beings. And yet, we disrupt it constantly. The cycle basically has 6 main stages, and seeing them laid out shows exactly where the armor tends to clamp down. So stage 1 is just sensation. It's that first little stir, quiet pang, a bit of tension, some physical cue that something's happening or something is needed. Stage 2 is awareness. That's where we translate the sensation into some kind of meaning, like, oh, that feeling, I think I'm hungry, or that heat in my face, I'm angry, or that ache, I feel lonely.
Right. And as you said, a lot of us slam on the brakes right there, right after awareness. But the natural cycle is supposed to keep going into mobilization.
Yes, mobilization, that's stage 3, and it's absolutely crucial. It's the energy surge. It's the impulse that arises from the awareness, the impulse to move towards something or maybe away from something. So if I'm aware I'm angry, I might feel energy rising, maybe in my arms or chest. If I'm aware I'm lonely, I might feel an impulse, a pull to reach out to someone. And mobilization naturally leads to action, which is stage 4. This is the actual behavior. Speaking your truth, reaching out physically or verbally, crying, setting a boundary, whatever the feeling calls for.
Which then hopefully leads to stage 5, contact, or maybe satisfaction, or even grief sometimes. This is where it meets the world. The need gets met, or the emotion gets expressed and witnessed, or the fear gets faced. And if that contact happens, if it feels complete in some way, we move to the last stage, withdrawal or integration.
Exactly. Stage 6 is the rest. The energy settles, the feeling dissipates naturally, the nervous system calms down, and we kind of absorb the learning from the experience. The cycle is complete, we're back at baseline, ready for the next sensation to arise. The problem, as you pointed out, is that most of us interrupt the cycle right after sensation, or maybe right after awareness. We shut the feeling down before that mobilizing energy even gets a chance to build and move.
And that interruption, that's what leaves us feeling kind of numb. Or distant, like we're watching our own lives happen from behind glass. We've basically frozen the energy and buried the impulse deep down.
Precisely. Because if you block mobilization, you never get to action. And if you don't take action, you never reach contact or completion. So the energy of that unmet need or unexpressed feeling, it just accumulates. It piles up inside, leading to that chronic tension, that feeling of exhaustion we talked about. Vulnerability gets lost, not usually in one big dramatic shutdown, but in all these tiny, almost unnoticed moments. The instant we feel that pang of sadness, decide, oh, that's silly, and just immediately swipe it away, distract ourselves.
Okay, this brings us back to how incredibly clever those avoidance strategies are. They're really loyal to that old survival script, aren't they? Let's maybe break down a few more of them, showing how they specifically function as interruptions in that cycle.
Okay, yeah. Take intellectualizing. This is a classic one. This strategy interrupts mobilization and action by basically forcing the feeling back up into your head. So instead of actually feeling the hot surge of anger, you start analyzing the socio-political context of the argument or the psychological motivations of the other person. The feeling gets contained, neutralized by thought. It guarantees the energy never moves into action, the cycle never completes. You become like a commentator on your own pain instead of actually experiencing and moving through it.
Or what about over-explaining? That attempt to control the narrative around the feeling.
Oh, that's such a powerful defense against feeling vulnerable. If I dare to share a feeling, maybe say, I feel hurt, I immediately follow it up with this long explanation, the history, the context, the philosophical justification for why I'm entitled to feel hurt. The real goal there isn't expression, it's control. It's trying to preemptively defend against any possible judgment by proving the feeling is valid. It ensures the listener never just gets to sit with the raw feeling itself. The raw feeling gets drowned out by all the noise, all the explanation, it's interrupted.
And then the really common ones, numbing and people-pleasing.
Right. Numbing, whether it's endless scrolling or burying yourself in work, or maybe using substances that's a direct active shutdown, often right at the sensation stage. You're basically refusing to even let the pang or the stirring rise into awareness. You keep yourself constantly busy, constantly stimulated to make sure the system never gets quiet enough for the feeling to actually surface. People-pleasing, on the other hand, that's all about loyalty to the external script. My worth depends on keeping you happy. So you interrupt your own needs, your boundaries, your preferences, the action stage to make sure the other person stays comfortable. All these strategies, they were brilliant adaptations once. They helped us survive. But now they're the very things keeping us stuck, looping in an incomplete cycle.
So feeling safe, true safety, isn't really about not feeling things. It's about having enough presence, enough internal support to allow the feeling to actually move through its cycle and complete itself. But getting there, that requires a really radical shift in how we think about vulnerability itself. You know, we usually think about vulnerability as something we do towards others, like opening up, sharing secrets, showing emotion to someone else. But what you're suggesting, and what feels really profound here, is that the truly scary, the really life-changing work, it's about opening up to yourself.
This is the absolute key pivot point. We put on the armor, we guard ourselves, not mainly because the world out there is inherently unsafe, though, let's be real, it often can be. But the primary reason is often because we haven't learned how to be a safe container for ourselves first. We abandon ourselves first. The deepest fear isn't really that others will reject us when we're trembling or needy. It's that our own need, our own confusion, our own fear will feel so huge, so overwhelming that we will find it unbearable, that it will somehow destroy us from the inside, or make us feel pathetic and unlovable in our own eyes.
Wow, so if you can't trust yourself to hold your own difficult feelings, your own pain, then you're always kind of looking outside, waiting for someone else to come along and manage your internal world for you, which of course never really works.
No, it doesn't. And it leads directly into this really subtle, sneaky thing, projection. Because we can't quite hold our own raw experience, the need, the judgment, the fear, we unconsciously kind of put it onto other people. It's a way of keeping the vulnerability out there, safely externalized, instead of having to feel it in here.
Can you give some concrete examples like that? How does that internal self-abandonment actually show up as projection onto others?
Sure. Think about when you catch yourself constantly thinking, oh, they just won't understand what I'm going through. If you really pause and look inward, honestly, it often translates to, actually, I don't fully understand myself or the depth of my own feelings yet. Or that recurring anxious thought, they're gonna judge me for being so messy or needy. Very often, that's a direct reflection, a perfect mirror of the harsh, preemptive self-judgment that's already happening inside you. We judge ourselves first, and then we expect others to do the same.
And maybe the ultimate projection. If I show them the real me, the messy parts, they'll leave. Which is maybe a subtle way of admitting deep down, I've already abandoned this part of myself, and I just assume everyone else will follow my lead.
Exactly. So the radical invitation, the shift, is to start taking that projection back.
Yeah.
To stop waiting for the outside world, the perfect partner, the ideal therapist, the right moment to grant you permission to feel safe. And instead, start the work of making it safe for yourself, inside yourself, right here, right now. That's where the sense of empowerment really begins to dawn.
Okay, so this really shifts things. It moves us away from feeling like a victim of circumstance or other people's reactions and towards a place of responsibility.
And you mean responsibility in the Gestalt sense, right?
Right.
Not blame, but responsibility. We stop asking, who did this to me? Or why are they like that? And we start asking, maybe gently, okay, what am I doing right now in this moment that's keeping me stuck inside this armor?
Yes, the power is entirely in recognizing that. If you are the one, consciously or unconsciously, interrupting your own natural cycle of experience, then you are also the only one who holds the key to letting it complete. You don't actually need anyone else's permission or approval or even their understanding to feel what's alive in you right now. You just need your own willingness to turn towards it, to meet that feeling, that sensation, without judgment, without trying to fix it, and crucially, without leaving yourself. So when we do turn inward, when we stop abandoning ourselves and start trying to stay present, we inevitably bump up against those internal voices, right? The inner critic, the part that wants to please everyone, the part that just wants to avoid feeling anything difficult. And we've often been taught to see these as like bad parts of ourselves, things we need to fight or get rid of.
But they're not enemies. They're just parts of us. Often they're parts that got frozen in time, stuck doing a job they learned was necessary for survival way back when. They're still desperately trying to run that old, outdated program to keep you safe. So the path towards feeling more whole isn't about silencing them or obeying them blindly. It's more about respectful dialogue. It's about creating enough internal space, enough compassion, so these parts can finally be heard, truly heard, without needing to hijack the whole system.
Okay, but what does that dialogue actually sound like in a real practical way? How do you talk to that loud, anxious voice inside that's screaming, "Don't cry, don't show weakness, you'll push them away"?
Well, the dialogue starts with just acknowledging it and maybe even thanking it. You locate it, maybe feel where it lives in your body, that familiar tightening in the chest perhaps, and you speak to it internally. Something like, okay, I hear you. Thank you for trying so hard to protect me. I know you remember what happened that time I cried, and you're really trying to keep me safe from feeling that pain again. Acknowledgement, gratitude. But then comes the crucial second part, the boundary. However, I'm not that helpless child anymore. I'm an adult now. I actually can feel this intensity. I can hold this sadness or this fear. I won't disappear if I feel it. That combination, acknowledging its protective intent while also gently asserting your present-day capacity, that's the core of integration. You're listening without obeying.
And this kind of integration, this dialogue, leads towards what you call completion, which sounds really different from how our culture usually talks about closure, like trying to fix the past or just put a lid on something.
Oh, it's vastly different. Closure often implies trying to change what happened or get some final answer. Just forget about it. Completion isn't about fixing the past at all. It's about completing the unfinished business, the interrupted cycle, right here, right now, in the present moment. The stored energy of that swallowed truth, the words you never got to speak, the grief you didn't feel safe enough to grieve back then, that energy is still alive. It's still held in your nervous system, waiting. Completion means we finally allow that energy to move. We allow ourselves, in the safety of the present, to say what couldn't be said then, or to feel the grief that was too overwhelming to touch at the time.
And the final piece of that is the physical release.
Right.
This is where the body itself finally gets the message that it's safe now, that it can stop holding on so tight.
Yes. The armor begins to soften when the body gets the lived experience, the deep knowing that you are present now, you are listening compassionately, and most importantly, you are not going to abandon it when the difficult feelings arise. And that physical release can look like anything. Maybe it's a sudden deep sigh, or spontaneous tremor running through you, or tears that finally flow without shame, or just an unexpected, gentle softening in your jaw or your belly. Healing happens when the throat finally learns it's safe to relax, when the eyes remember it's okay to weep, when the chest can finally expand with the breath carrying the truth that was held captive inside for so long. That messiness, that release, it's not a sign of breakdown. It's the physical signal of energetic freedom, of completion happening.
So we achieve completion, not because we magically rewrote history, but because the energy that got stuck back then has finally been allowed to move all the way through and out of our bodies, right here in the present. Because we stayed. We met ourselves. And the cycle finally got to close. #tag outro. Wow. So this whole deep dive really shows that vulnerability. It isn't some dramatic performance we put on for others or some destination we finally arrive at. It's much more like a quiet, moment-by-moment practice, a constant returning to ourselves, choosing to feel alive over staying armored up, choosing presence over just performing. It's like the radical realization that you're already vulnerable. Underneath it all, you just have to gently stop interrupting the experience of it.
Mm-hmm. So maybe for this week ahead, the challenge, the invitation for you listening is actually quite simple, but maybe profoundly radical too. Don't try to change anything out there in the world. Just focus entirely on your internal landscape. Practice the radical act of simply noticing. When you catch yourself about to automatically say, I'm fine, or when you notice you're starting to analyze or explain away a sharp feeling, just pause for a breath. Feel what's actually underneath that impulse. Don't try to fix it. Don't analyze it. Just let the pure sensation, whatever it is, be felt just for a moment.
Yeah, allow that little bit of trembling maybe, or that flush of heat, or that feeling of breath being stuck. Try not to label it weakness. Maybe just call it aliveness, or call it contact.
And let's maybe anchor this idea with just one final, quiet experiment we can do together right now. If it feels okay for you, just find a quiet sitting position. And maybe gently place one hand over your heart and the other hand on your belly. Just feel the contact. Breathe softly for a moment, just feeling the gentle rise and fall under your hands. And then maybe just whisper these 4 simple central affirmations. Whisper them to the deepest parts of yourself, especially the parts that have been working so hard, holding that armor for so long. Let the words sink in, become a felt sense in your body.
Whisper, I am here.
I feel you.
You are allowed.
It won't leave.
There's this magnetic pull towards wholeness, isn't there? When you start to practice turning towards yourself, stop abandoning yourself, begin trusting that you can actually feel it, all the joy, yes, but also the immense grief, the fear, the confusion, the revolution that happens then, it's quiet. It's totally internal, and it's unstoppable.
You won't lose yourself when you finally start to soften that armor. You'll find yourself, piece by piece. Maybe trembling piece by trembling piece, like, oh, welcome home, welcome home.